One
I
oh
told
1-to-1 was the band.
I told the fucking Puma story last night on that webcast.
Did you really?
Mhm.
Now,
Including the Donna Pace part and the Juliana part.
okay, because that's really the most awesome. I mean, you need the first setup with Ronnie on the island, but then you need to see where it goes from there.
I was really tastefully, I was really tasteful about how I described Rania. You know, I gave him credit for being a multiple time gold medalist in Special Olympics and everything like that. And I said, you know, and he wasn't, you know, I was really, really polite about the whole story, but I was like, I mean, he wasn't really, he doesn't really think about it like we think about it. And, you know, here's proof. He's got a backup in the middle of the round. He's cruising the table, buys a first run fucking Puma and puts it right in his bag, you know?
Yeah, and I
And I
threw it
did
right in the
say
fucking
fucking Puma.
basket.
I said, sorry, I can't clean this up anymore. You got to say it properly. It's the fucking Puma. And the whole reason it came up was because, like, I was telling you about him going through my fucking pictures and shit. Well, so
Right?
Brandon and I were going through this stack of discs that I found in my parents' garage one time at Christmas. And
Yeah.
there's a fucking first run Puma in that stack in my parents' garage. And so
Ah,
I grab it and I probably sent you a picture of it too. But of course, I instantly sent it to Juliana because A, I hadn't talked to her in a long time, and B, I knew she would start fucking laughing about it. So I sent her a message today. And I said I told a fucking Puma story on a podcast last night, and she didn't catch that I said on a podcast, not on our podcast.
Oh,
And she goes, "Who was our guest?" And I go, "It was me. I was the guest. It was on somebody else's podcast." And she's like, "No way!" And I said, "Oh yeah." And I included you and Donna Pace in the story too. And she's like, "Oh my god." She goes, "You won't believe this, but." She said, I have a fucking Puma in the car. And every time I see it, I think of you guys and laugh. I was like, all right, perfect. I was like,
I
stories
lit.
like that have to live on. You know what I mean?
I thought Donna Pace was gonna break his urethra laughing at the fucking Puma story.
Fucking Puma story is awesome.
That's like in Seinfeld with the pachyderm story. He had these two slices of pizza.
So, I kind of got the feeling that Jonathan might be a little late. I did resend the invitation just a little bit ago.
I got it.
And so,
So wait, before you get into that, what do you think about that script? It's very, very sketchy, very minimal, but I don't know of any way to put me in between you talking about the 24th and bring us up or maybe I should, oh, that's what I should do.
you should
Okay,
take
so
to ask him some questions about the 24th because you
no,
weren't there.
you ask them just, hey, I was there, but can you talk about it? And I'll ask them about the 25th. And then you jump into that photo share. So do you have that photo ready to go to share on the
I got that on, that's on his Instagram, but I also downloaded it too. But what is that? Wait. That's not what I wanted. Oh, that's
okay, so you're gonna do the intro. I'm gonna talk about this is the big year for the Innova for Innova. You're gonna ask them, and you're but what you said earlier when we were talking on the phone earlier today, how Jonathan is a fan of the players as well as the game. That's important that you get into that and you're passionate about that. You know specifically about that. So dwell a little bit on that and then let that lead you into, bring us up to speed on how the 24th finished. Because the last time we spoke was on the Saturday.
yeah. Oh
And
yeah. Okay, that's cool.
and then I'll ask him about, do you have what do you want to share about it with us about the 25th? And then speaking of sharing, let's look at this photo here. And then that'll lead you into the music festivals and take some time to talk about that. And then I can jump in on what you picked up on what you had said today, how a lot of the evolutionary leaps forward that the USDGC puts into place are found on the tour, if not the next year, then in following years.
Yeah, that sounds good, dude. That all looks fun.
Do you want me to resend you this updated script?
What are you changing about it?
All I did was add a couple. I put me in for bringing us up to speed on plans for so far for the 25th, and then inserted me for the after your photo share with the concert festival, talking about the innovations and the evolutionary leaps.
Yeah, if you want to send it, go ahead. I'll just print it right on the other side of this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I like this. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Export to Word. No. Replace. So at 8 o'clock, then if Jonathan's going to be a little bit late, do you want to just go into hockey talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
You send that already?
I'm just about to. There we go. Because I'm working on a Mac, I have to export things to a Word document. Oh, hey, there he is. Look at you. Man, that beard is looking as fierce as ever, dude.
I just came here in case you need any help exporting things to the Mac or whatever. I'm here to do what I can, bro. I'm a crowd pleaser.
What
Did
are you
you send
working
that
on?
already?
I did. Are you a Mac or a PC guy?
Yeah. Many laps around the sun. I'm currently a Mac guy.
Yeah.
But whatever. I can get down with whatever I need to do.
Well, sometimes you get used to the shortcuts with PCs that don't always translate to shortcuts with Macs.
Right.
They have that extra Mac button right there. Well, it's the command button, but if you're on
So,
PCs, you're used to control plus this and that for shortcuts.
yeah. So unrelated to that, does that neon mess with you at all?
It provides a pleasingly hypnotic glow, to be honest.
Oh,
I'm
all
like,
right. I mean, I
I'm
can kind of
oh
keep the flow and
wait, just
reposition.
move it over a little bit so we have a little bit of ambient glow. Yeah, there you go. There you go. It's like that's a secret portal over there.
Yeah,
That's a Rick and Morty portal right there.
that's where all the goodness goes down over there in the corner.
I've hung out in that corner before. I've done a significant amount of eavesdropping in that corner before when other Zoom meetings were going on, but I
Man,
wasn't
that'd be cool to
necessarily a
just
part
be
of.
able to. You know what you should do is you should do a little tour of your wall in the back, all the plaques and the framed action going on there, because there's a lot of stuff going on back there behind you.
Oh, there
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I mean it's mostly family. I mean, there's a cool one thing about this angle is that I don't know, there's some cool stuff up there. I got my Steely. Wait a minute, let's see what I do. It's
The other way. There you
there.
go.
There it is. You want the trailer to go left, you turn the steering wheel to the right.
That was the hardest part of the driving test for sure. So before we get into it, let me just ask you really quickly. I know Mason and I were very passionate about hockey, and this is playoff time, and the Carolina Hurricanes are in the playoffs. Do you get drafted into the general wave of hurricane fever down there, or?
Not out here. I mean, I'm kind of like with hockey the way I'm with baseball. Like when we get into the postseason, the season begins. So I'm not really the one to ask. I mean, I'm the kind of the last minute to the dance so that I can say that I was there kind of guy when it comes to those sports. So yeah, I mean, football and disc golf, dude, were really about my main jam. I mean, and even basketball. Like basketball's been my favorite sport forever. And I
Yeah.
mean, even in the heat of the battle right now in the playoffs, it's like dude, I just don't have the bandwidth and the time. So
The thing is, you can always buy more bandwidth. You can't buy more time.
I mean, I just came off of 4 consecutive weeks of disc golf action. Like I haven't seen any playoffs until, I mean, I'm just barely catching some, catching some headlines. So anyway, it's like the NFL draft. I know that's a big deal tonight, and I know that it's going on, and I love my fantasy football league and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not thinking too much about teams and drafts. Dude, there's so many moves in the off season. Like
I
I
was
can
saying
barely
that
keep
when we were
like
leaving the
I can
hockey game
barely
the other
keep
night. I was saying that too. Like there's just like there's no reason. Well, I mean, there's people that live and die. Like Zeb, I'm sure is glued, but it's like I'm like there's still going to be 20 changes before the season starts in the NFL, or more on your roster, and so
yeah,
it's hard
I
to
mean
get involved.
it's so hard to keep up with. I mean, and I, like you guys come from the era of like dudes go to a team and when you follow Jordan and the Bulls, it's Jordan and the Bulls. Like, I mean, there
Yeah,
might be
right,
a
right,
little bit
right.
of change, but like
That's all
when you watch
changing now.
the Bulls Pistons go at it and the Celtics and the Lakers, it's like the same dudes beating each other
Yeah,
down.
Lambier for the Pistons, and yeah, exactly.
And
Celtics and
now it's yeah, you're
Larry
halfway
Bird
through the
Magic.
season. You're halfway through the season before you realize, okay, these dudes are all in different places now, and I mean, it's a different time.
Yeah, totally. The era
Well,
of
hey,
the
so let's
franchise
go ahead.
player.
I'm gonna go ahead and
Yeah,
hit the go live because we can
right
talk.
on.
This stuff is good stuff to talk about on there too. So we're going live on Facebook now, and not quite there yet, but
Now we're streaming live.
all right, cool.
Your GTG, baby.
All right, everybody. Looks like we're live here again. Start the webinar. Start it. Let's go. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Good Times Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present a very, very good friend of the show, longtime friend of the show, one of our first guests. He's the hip heavy hitter who is way too school for school. Please welcome Jonathna Poole.
Jonathna Poole, thank you, buddy.
That's
What's up, fellas?
Thank you for taking this time to join us. And 2023 is a huge year for Innova. Huge. I mean, this is for those of the newbies out there who may not know, although you have to be under a rock not to know. This is the 40th anniversary of Innova as a company, as the beveled edge disc, and it's the 25th anniversary of the USDGC. And I mean, that's just when you think about anniversaries, that's fairly monster in both those departments. So maybe we can start the show with Jonathan. Just talk to us a little bit about how important this year is to you personally.
Well, first off, thanks for the invite, man. It's always good to hang out and kick it with you guys a little bit. Always fun. Always goes by quick. It is an exciting year. I mean, despite all the gray in the beard, I mean, I was only around, this is my 27th year with Innova, so only 27 of the 40. So I missed some of the OG stuff. But been around for a minute, and it's really been interesting to see how much not just Innova has changed, but how much the game and the industry has changed, and how many new players have just poured into our beloved community from around the world. So it's just a celebration of just affirmation of what we always knew from day one, that disc golf is pretty legit, and the community, aside from how cool it is to throw frisbees that kind of go where you want them to go, just the community that we all have. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And to have that just happen to dovetail with the 25th anniversary of the USDGC, which is almost like a family reunion of sorts to me, because so many of us have been there for many of these years. 2023 is just is kind of an ongoing celebration of all of the things that we love. So yeah, man, stoked to be in the midst of it, and to share some of those good vibes with you guys.
Nice.
Yeah, it's interesting that those two overlap. And then I was thinking about it today too. Then when the championship's 35, Innova is going to be 50. So that's kind of cool. That's going to be a cool alignment as well. But one of the things that Paul and I were talking about today, and one of the things that I want to point out to everybody that, is something that I've kind of admire in you, and just try to keep up with to some degree. And that is how you're such a fan of the game and the players. And, obviously you got your job and you have the position that you have, which requires you to, run the event, but also have a significant hand in a team action still. And then obviously, like you were telling us on the warm up, for the last 4 weekends, you've been on the go. And so let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, what is it that drives you to be such a fan of all these players, and and then what have you been up to? I mean, tell everybody else a little bit more about what you do in the off season as some of your responsibilities. I mean, meaning the off season from the U.S. Disc Golf Championship, obviously. It's not
Yeah,
the off season at all by any stretch, but
yeah, the off season has turned into like a short nap, somewhere around Christmas and New Year's, which is exciting. It's cool that there's that much going on in disc golf that you're almost forced to get right back to it. And the cool thing is you're always ready to get right back to it. For me personally, I mean, April has been a bit of a blur. I mean, I just Sunday finished 4 consecutive weeks of disc golf events, which sort of led off with a first ever kind of music festival for me. I mean, we ran the Vibe Time Music, Arts, and Flying Disc Festival here at my home course in Pawleys Island, which is kind of exciting. It was a 1-day festival on a Saturday. Had about 500 people or so. So that was a pretty cool start for a first year event. Loaded up Sunday and drove to the soon to be infamous North Cove Disc Golf and Leisure Club in Marion, North Carolina, where we ran a 704 player major with about 5 volunteers, where the majority of participants were parked off site and the closest lots were either about 2 miles away or about 5 miles away.
is this
So
where the school bus comes in?
That's where the school bus, we get to that in a little bit. That's kind of where that begins to become relevant. So I was home for a couple of days and then right back to that same venue where we had the Disc Golf Pro Tour Silver Series. The Blue Ridge Championship was there the very next week. And then I was home for another day or two and went to Augusta for the first pro major of the year, the Champions Cup. And that was exciting. I mean, lots of cool meetings, interaction with people. And I got to caddy for my girl from Finland, Henna. She didn't quite come up to what she had hoped, but I mean, we had a blast. It's always cool to be inside the ropes and see big events like that from the player's perspective. I mean, I think that helps balance out, my TD promoter role is to kind of really look at not only what I'm doing and what we do in Rock Hill, but what other promoters and other tournament directors and both the PDGA and the Disc Golf Pro Tour camps are doing. I'm fairly well patched in. So, I mean, I kind of understand the angle that they're coming at it. So it's pretty cool to throw on the caddy bib and hop on the inside and actually get the inside out sort of perspective on all of that. So that wrapped up on Sunday, and been a whirlwind month so far, but we've got USDGC qualifying obviously goes on throughout the year. We're deep into that already. Planning and preparation for October is well underway. And there's all sorts of other Innova related, athlete and ambassador type things that are going on, sort of humming along in the background. So yeah, lots going on.
So the last time that we spoke, that was from, and speaking of Hannah, you had caddied for her at the USDGC as well. You didn't just run the biggest tournament on the planet, but you were also an active caddy for one of the players in the tournament. That was during the middle of the course. So maybe you want to just bring us up to speed on how the 24th ended. Were there any interesting developments? What were the personal highlights for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, I guess for me that I'd never done that before at Winthrop. You know, so to be able to like step inside the ropes for, you know, what I feel like is my tournament. I mean, sometimes I feel guilty saying that because there's a lot of people that can say that because
It's our tournament.
It's a family that built it, but to be, you know, for something that I've been so close to like pop inside, you know, the ropes and like carry a bag and like and see if what it looks like from their perspective is anything like how you drew it up leading up to it. You know, and last year, it's important to go back. I mean, Champions Cup last year was, you know, the first major of the year with henna on the bag. And so we did Champions Cup, we did US Women's, we did Worlds. And then I just felt like, well, look, if I can complete the cycle here, even though Throw Pink isn't a major in the PDJ classification, I mean, I think most of the ladies consider it a major in terms of how they feel and how it's run and all that. So, you know, it was cool to sort of finish the season from, you know, on a high note like that. I mean, I felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that the championship had gotten to the point where I could carve out 3.5 to 4 hours every day in prime time as we're in the mornings when we're building up to speed, to be able to just disconnect and trust my team to be able to do that. Not only did it give me good perspective, it sort of proved to our team that could be done. And I think that's important in the short and longer term. You know, it is about us. It isn't about me. So that was almost kind of putting that in some ways to the test. Some bigger like zoom out takeaways, you know, I've said for years that the Europeans are coming. I mean, it's going to be a thing. You know, I've watched it happen in snowboarding. You know, you've seen it in other sports, but to see Gannon Burr, who I met at the USDGC when he was, you know, about half my height. Now he's more than my height. You know, to see that dude in particular just ball out and go head to head with a name like Nicholas, you know, who most people didn't know, but I'm like, there you go. Like that was sort of a defining moment a little bit. Not that there haven't been others. Wouldn't want to dismiss what Kristen has been doing and is doing at the moment. But I mean, watching that performance was a reminder that, look, the young kids are coming and they're not just coming from the United States. They're coming from all over the world. And if you didn't know, now you know.
It's true.
You know,
and I mean, he's been on a roll since too. I mean, was he
yeah,
on 3 this year? 3 wins already this year? Something like
yeah,
that? 2 for sure.
yeah. So, I mean, it's just super exciting as a fan of the game to see play at that level from young players in, you know, both the male and female sides of things. I mean, to see that kind of competitiveness and that kind of love for the game coming in from all over the earth is pretty freaking rad.
No question.
Absolutely. I mean, from the very first frisbees that were stamped under the bottom and said "play catch invent games," you take that to your little corner of the world and you start playing catch and inventing games. And hey, some people can devote more time at it and get a little better. And now we're seeing global momentum really build in the sport. And you know, when you talk about that being inside the ropes, that's an amazing perspective for a tournament director, because a lot of times you've got a buffer of staff between you and the actual play. And so, you know, you're almost a little ivory tower. Well, maybe not you, but I mean, with any tournament that I've run, I'm step removed from the actual, like, what is it like on the turf? What is it like when they squelch in the ponds or the wet parts or whatever? And you getting that experience as a caddy can only shape your experience as a tournament director, can it?
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, I believe it's very important to not forget why you do what you do. And it's easy when things get bigger and more hectic and there's more commas and zeros and there's more noise. It's easy to get lost in it. And you know, one of the reasons I've always kind of stuck with athletes and ambassadors and, you know, promoters and TDing is because that's why I did it. that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I love that. I love the people. I love being in the mix. And I've said for years that you're either out there or you're not. And, my life is just, as I've grown older, has sort of changed in terms of my practice time, my time to compete, my time to travel, all of that. I mean, I sort of put that dream to bed a long time ago and decided that I would be better off contributing in other ways. However, when we go play golf together, especially in a tournament setting, with every round and every event, you just build relationships with people, and those relationships are important. And then you go back to other events and you play with some of those people again, and the relationship grows. And it just repeat. And the more you play, the more relationships like that you have. And so for me, being a caddy, for example, I not only develop the relationship with the athlete that I'm helping, I also establish a relationship with their caddies and the other players in the group and their caddies. And so it's like the closest thing really to the bonds that you build when you're playing that you can get. You're not going to get that walking outside the ropes. You're just hanging out at the park while these things are going on. You got to get in there and live it. It is an emotional journey, and it is filled with ups, and it is filled with some pretty low downs, and you go through that, man. That's life. That is life. That's golf. That's life. And so, it keeps it real. And I am able to sort of stay relevant with the challenges that they're facing. And that can be the course. That can be the fact that sometimes there's 8 cameras now surrounding you and pointing at you when you're putting. And sometimes those cameras are darn near the bullseye. And so it's like being able to feel for your player what that feels like, or for anybody in your group, what that feels like and what that looks like. That's irreplaceable. And I wasn't getting that as a TD necessarily. I mean, I got some of that. But when you're in it, I mean, it's one thing to be in the stone house in my office, in the war room at Winthrop, watching it on the big screen. It's a whole nother thing to be carrying the bag for a person that you're really rooting for, and you're watching what is actually happening. And you're like, well, you got a little bit of skin in the game for everybody there. I'm rooting for everybody.
So let me before you part from that thought, let me remind you of the talk that we had right after the awards on the stage. And one of the things you talked to me about is a perfect example for you to go into this story to continue what you just told about you experiencing what the players are going through. Remember when you told me that one of the girls on your card, on Henna's card, had a really tough go, and then as you guys on either 3 or 4, and then as you guys played down 5, the commentators were talking about exactly that occurrence, and it came from the stage, from the vendor area, right over to them. And so you remember when you told me about that, and she had to relive it almost immediately because she was hearing that commentary. And so, I mean, I think that's a perfect example of what you're talking about, in case anybody's not quite picking up on where you're going with all that. Is how else would you have known about that? I mean, it wasn't a better way than for you to experience it firsthand, I don't think.
Yeah, and I mean, it was Katrina Allen.
Oh, okay.
She had missed a putt earlier in the round, and then just for whatever reason, it happened to be what they were talking about on the commentary. And I would never have thought that walking down the fairway of 5, I mean, probably 2,000 feet from where the broadcast screen was in the village, but what we underestimated, or what we learned last year, was, when, we had speakers at ground level the year before. Well, when we brought in a real stage and we had speakers that were elevated on either side of the stage, the sound projected out over the vendors, and it sort of got into the arena, into the bowl, and then echoed across the water. And so even the commentary was far more audible than what I would have thought. So here we are, we're walking down 5, and I heard it, and I knew that she heard it, and I'm texting playing short on the stage. I'm like, turn it down, turn it down, turn it down. Because I just would not have, I would not have thought of that. And so it's like, you want to create the best possible fan experience, but not at the expense of the athlete experience. And finding a way for those things to mesh is really important. And, you can have a great screen. You can spend a lot of money, 10, 15, $20,000 on a screen, and you stick it in the wrong place and you're screwed. It was a waste of money. Or your speakers can be higher or louder or whatever than what you thought. And you're just like, whoa, I didn't think about the fact that they're going to be on about a 2 or 3 second delay. And I'm going to be hearing what just happened as I'm actually golfing. And so, there's as a sport at the professional level, there's a lot of those little details that we're still working out. And in October, for me, even after all these years, it was still working it out in real time.
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing thing. So what do you got to tell us about the 25th? I mean, I'm excited about it. I think we're like 156 days away or something like that from Monday qualifying.
But who's counting?
Oh, I am. Corduroy's counting too.
Yeah, Corduroy, yeah, he is definitely counting, and that's awesome. I mean, the fact that we have any single human on the planet that's paying that close of attention is pretty awesome. It kind of helps stoke the fandom. But like I alluded to earlier, I mean, it's going to be a celebration. It's a homecoming. We should all be polishing the dancing shoes. There's going to be music every night. I don't know that it's going to look substantially different in terms of the course or the layout in the village and all the good atmosphere that we were able to sort of create. It's just going to be, we're just going to turn up the volume a little
to
bit.
11.
Yeah, or as loud as it'll go. If it's 11 if that's the max, then 11 is going to be where it's going to go.
But this one goes to 11.
So, I mean, it's like that's the big thing. I mean, we're hyper focused on the fan experience. I mean, for me this year, it's been about, I keep using the phrase cast a wider net. And I really put that to the test with this Vibe Time Festival here in Pawleys. I mean, that in some ways was preparation for Championship Village. And I guess what I was really wanting to take a look at was, and this is where you just have to sort of be real about where we are. And this is kind of a hard thing to admit, but when you're just promoting a disc golf tournament, you're casting a pretty small net. There's only, even though the market has grown exponentially, it's still a fairly small net. And I mean, I just had to get to a point where I had to, accept that, embrace that, and work with that. And so, by throwing this music festival and taking the music to another level, the art to another level, and even just adding the canine community. I mean, if you think about adding catch dogs and agility dogs and making it a pet friendly event, I mean, your audience, your net is probably 1,000x easy. Because now you're talking about all the people who have dogs instead of just the people who think anything or care anything about a disc golf tournament. So you can put a poster up at your local vet clinic or your PetSmart or Humane Society or whatever your local pet stores are, and you can just reach a wider audience. And that's kind of been my mission this year. And so if you think about it, Brian, I mean, you in particular know how hard we've worked. I mean, this has been 25 years
since we met up at Ron's house.
To get, yeah.
Or was that 26 years?
Well, that was
earlier in the first year, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
so it's been 25 years.
That was 98. So, but I mean, you figure this will be 25 years. It's taken us this long to get a crowd of 5,000 people. To me, if we're going to get to 10,000 people, it's going to be because we create an electric atmosphere in the village, and when we have entertainment value. It's like, I don't know how much more we can do to promote how amazing the athletes and their skill levels and the golf is. So we need to cast a wider net. I mean, if the effort is to have more music, more entertainment, more, the fan experience is where it's at, right? So, I mean, if we focus on that, and like, I don't care necessarily how they get there, but we need to create the best possible experiences for the widest possible audience. And so 5 time was really sort of a test to kind of help learn some things and see what that looked like, and then hopefully apply those lessons to the effort in October. But I mean, I want disc golf to see 6,000, 8,000, 10,000, 15,000. Like in my time, I want to be able to see that, and I want to be able to see our infrastructure be able to accommodate that. And that's going to require solid promoters, solid volunteer crew, A plus effort from the PDGA, A plus effort from the Pro Tour. Like, we're getting there, but we still have a ways to go. And so,
Sure.
to me, now we're really pushing the envelope in terms of ticket pricing. That elevates the spectator expectation. That dictates, whether or not you deliver value, determines whether or not they come back again to your event next year, or even to the next one on stop. So we're all kind of responsible in a way for where professional disc golf is, where it's going, what it should look like. And I mean, just what a ride it has been, and what an honor it has been to kind of be at or near the forefront of that, and to sort of lean in on what I've learned, and help others sort of figure it out. Like, I feel like we've always been sort of building the plane in flight,
Well, it seems like most of the innovations, or let's just call it evolutionary leaps, that have happened in disc golf tournament thinking and application has come largely, or at least arguably, as a result of USDGC prior things. So just the idea of qualifying. I mean, right from the very first, you had to qualify. You just couldn't go to show up at the USDGC. This wasn't just an open thing. So you've always driven the bus. And I think, Mace, I don't know if you've got this ready to go, but speaking of
it's ready.
driving the bus, this is really going to dovetail nicely with, but Mace is going to share his screen, and we have a photo that we want to just kind of talk a bit more about. But I mean, you as the tournament director, or at least the guy at the top of the round table leading this tournament, have been moving the first yard marker forward each year. Oh, here we go. There we go. So,
Man, I don't know if I've seen you smile that big in a long time, dude. I'm
yeah,
sure
look
it
at that
happens, but
smile.
I was just like going, man, you could read a whole lot into this picture.
It almost felt like a lifetime achievement award. And it's worth noting that I was not driving the bus that particular week. You can see the girl there who's kind of at the top of the steps, ready to punch your ticket or
Oh,
not.
okay.
Donna was our bus driver for the Silver Series week. We called her Aunt B. That's actually Matt Weedman, from the Innova warehouse in Rock Hill and of DGU fame.
Right on.
That's Weedman's aunt. So she drove the bus, and twice we had to, I mean, like, that thing ran all day, and twice we had to go and fill her up. And they're like, hey man, we need you to meet us at the gas station to fill this thing up. I'm like, let's go. This feels cool. I've never filled up a school bus with fuel. I have no idea what it's going to cost or how many gallons it's going to take, but it just feels like the thing to do.
So
So
how many
anyway,
gallons did it take? I've never done that either. I've put gas in a lot of stuff, but not one of those.
the receipt is probably around here somewhere. I don't know. It was not as much as I would have thought. I want to say it was like 30 gallons or something. I mean, it didn't hold quite as much as I thought. I was expecting to drop about 5 bills on it, but it didn't quite ring up that high. But she was awesome. And then we had a guy come the week before, Clay, who actually works for Camp Canaan in Rock Hill. He came up to drive, I think, the same bus the whole week before for the collegiate. And the thing about this week, I mean, this is from the Silver Series. Crazy fact, like North Cove is an amazing golf course, amazing venue, amazing vibe, all that. But every single spectator had to be bussed in on that thing and in 2 other like shuttle vehicles, like SUV, Tahoe kind of things, had to be bussed in from a lot that was 5 miles away.
Wow.
So for 2 straight weeks, I ran like the front gate, helping with parking, shuttles, all that kind of stuff, kind of working out that whole thing. But it was just a wild ride, man. I mean, we had to get everybody bussed in. They got dropped off at the front gate. Like I watched this bus pull into North Cove about what felt like 500 times. Welcomed everybody as they got off the bus, gave them some instruction, got them back on the bus at the end of the day, and sort of just did the whole deal. But it was just kind of in the trenches kind of stuff that just, a lot of people would be like, dude, that sounds terrible. But there was just this energy for both of these events, whether it was fans for the Pro Tour or whether it was the previous week where it was more than half the field. I'll go back to a stat from earlier. I mean, we ran a 704 person major with about 5 volunteers. So we were busting tail. And the majority of the kids that played rode in from that lot that was miles and miles away. So they're pouring off the bus, ready to get to their tee times and kind of rolling up on it. And just an extraordinary effort on our team's part. And it's just a neat thing to be a part of, man. I mean, it was a unique thing for both weeks. We got it done, and just being a part of that energy, I guess, is part of, one of the big reasons that keeps me coming back.
Well, certainly, one of the great success stories of like the better CEOs are the guys who have done everything in their company organization, from say serving hamburgers to developing strategic plans. And so I think it's not only humbling, but really enlightening for the person who's metaphorically driving the bus to get out of the office, to get out of the strategic room, and to get on the bus and just like experience from the ground level. And I mean, I think that gives you a type of perspective for just an event, someone who runs events, whether it's a disc golf tournament or whatever event. You see the process, the flow from the very start to the very end, from 5 miles away to literally 6 inches away. I can only imagine how this has just shaped your philosophy on how to run a better event in the future.
Well, one thing that is lacking at the moment, and I think this is important, and it's understandable because it's just part of the evolution and part of where we are in the face of this growth. But there's been and continues to be, I think, a lack of effort and attention put towards the safe flow of people on and off the venues where we go. And that can be majors, pro tours. That's the USDGC. I mean, we built a road to minimize at Winthrop to minimize cars and humans sharing the same place, sharing the same spaces. And it just blew up. Post COVID, it really blew up, and the fan base changed. And it's not just a bunch of bros coming out to watch disc golf, it's families. And there's kids, and they're all over the place, and they're all ages, and they don't necessarily know what they're looking at. It could be their first time, you never know. And so for me, those 2 weeks at North Cove, my priority was safety, period. I mean, we're really good at running tournaments. We've got great courses. We have great TDs, great promoters, great clubs. They're in abundance. That's awesome. The media piece with Jeff Spring and the Disc Golf Network and all of that, it's coming along better than it's ever been. That's awesome. The reality is we are spread thin, taking care of the tournament logistics and the event logistics. We're hyper-focused, as we need to be, on the tournament experience, and also now more the fan experience from a ticket standpoint. But I mean, there's, to the bus piece, some listeners will get this, or viewers, further. You have to keep going further. And there is a safety element story. After we shut down the front gate on one of the Blue Ridge days, our shuttle drivers had driven 300 miles plus. I mean, they were just crushing. So I hop in one of the vans, start running people. So I come back to get another load. I pull up, and here comes a guy and his wife and their baby, which was essentially in a backpack. Father of 3 boys. This guy gets in the back seat of the car that I'm driving, the SUV that I'm driving, sets the baby down in the backpack in the middle of the back seat. And I'm thinking, okay, I got to drive 5 miles on a somewhat windy mountain road with a kid who isn't strapped in. To some, may be no big deal. To me, big deal. So I started thinking about the trench work. I'm thinking about liability. I'm thinking about insurance. I'm thinking about car seats. I'm thinking about drivers who should drive them. Like, how do we make sure we get this family safe? How do we take care of them? And the other interesting thing about Blue Ridge is, like, it was one of the rare events, might be one of the only events. I don't know, because I'm not at all of these, but we sold out. The Blue Ridge Championship sold out, and we had to turn away a lot of people at that front gate.
Wow.
And people didn't understand how you could come to what was once a ball golf course, lots and lots of acreage. I don't know what the full acreage is, but it's a wide open space. They're like, well, how in the world is it sold out? Well, first off, parking. We know how many people we can handle here. The only lot we really have to work with is 5 miles away. And I know exactly how many cars we can park in there because we did it last week. Like, we pushed it to the max. Also, the previous week, we had a serious thunderstorm pop up with lightning cracking all around, where we had to clear the course. 400 plus people. So you have to think about where they're going to go.
Yeah, where are you going to put them?
You can't shuttle 400 people off campus in any reasonable time. And like that particular case in the mountains, that storm popped up in 20 minutes, and it was like, boom, it's on you. If you're not off the course, you're at serious risk. So we learned that lesson the week before. We brought it into the next week, and we're like, hey, we need to pump the brakes on ticket sales. Like, there is a real number on what this venue can handle, for more reasons than just fears of somebody
Shoulder to
getting
shoulder, standing by each other, right?
right. Like, there's a lot more to it, and a lot of that begins with safety. And so I feel like it's a personal obligation of for me, to have been in these positions, to see what I see and know what I know, to kind of pay that forward, because we have to be hyper focused on the competition and the courses and the media and the fan experiences, both on the course and at home. But there is just a fundamental, like, people have to feel safe because they actually are safe. There has to be, your EMT service has to be in place. You have to know what your emergency plan is, because if we learned anything in 25 years in Rock Hill, it's always expect the unexpected. Something will come up that you didn't know. Right.
How many times? Seriously, that's like a whole nother show. All the oddball stuff that's happened in Rock Hill in the last 24 years that you couldn't see coming. Like, going back to Stevie throwing into the crawl space under the house, or Felberg being on the island off of 17 and claiming he's safe. And just things like that. Like, you can't come up with this. We can't come up with this. We're all pretty smart. We've done a lot of things, but it's just like all that stuff that you're talking about is like, how do you learn from that? Well, once you're getting burned by it, it's hard to see that coming unless you have a reason to. And now obviously we have lots of reasons to.
Well, and people are doing an amazing job in all of these camps that are making these things happen. I know there's from the fan or from a distance, it might look like, oh man, gee whiz, like, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? At the end of the day, you got a lot of people just like us who are, who love the game, who love the players, who love the scene, who respect the community, they're doing big things, and they're doing complicated things, and they're doing risky things. And, we just need to stay the course. Like, it's growing pains. They're probably going to always be there, but they're certainly going to be there now and for the foreseeable future, because it's just where we are. We haven't been doing this for 200 years. We've been doing this for 40.
Right.
Now, the idea of anything else sharing the same time and space with a disc golf tournament, like music, for instance. Oftentimes, when music is just playing in the background, some players get in a snit. But having a whole music festival, sharing the same space, the same site, the same electric energy, is there space in the PDJ on the Pro Tour for top level, professional, elite level events to also have these kind of fan friendly, music heavy, event driven experiences?
I don't think they have a choice. I mean, we're in the entertainment business now. And we have to appeal to a lot broader audience than what it once was. And so back to Vibe Time, and other events like that, like for me, I'm almost reverse engineering what the championship is. Like you build the festival and you build the energy and the desirability for a broader market, and then you scale the golf accordingly. I see that really as being the future. And one of the other things that disc golf is up against is we don't have the venues. Like we don't have the venues to accommodate where we're at, much less where we're going.
Right.
We have fantastic courses. North Cove is three fantastic courses. But when you get real about it being an event, checking the event boxes, it's remote. Internet and cell signal stuff can be a challenge. Getting volunteers can be a challenge. Getting a mass of people to travel more than a few hours away can be a challenge. There are just things like that we have to take into consideration, but this is just where we are. When you think about if we're going to get to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 person galleries, as we touched on earlier, parking is a big deal. Safety is a big deal. The wireless broadcast capabilities of these things are a big deal. The entertainment value that you can provide is a big deal. And so, to me, when you look at like what some of the things that are happening on the PGA Tour, when you look at what Live Golf is doing, when you look at what X Games has kind of pioneered over many years, you throw the party, and you create these, like, I don't want to miss that. And this again, the phrase of like cast a wider net. The festival here proved it like right away to me. If you just zoom out a little bit and find a way to embrace and welcome more people into our community, they also fit. And there's just that much more love. There's that much more interest, and you bring people to our community and sort of show them what we're all about. But if you just focus on promoting a disc golf event, I mean, gosh, dude, I just hate to say it.
You're right. It's totally,
I hate to say it out loud, but just expect modest results, and that's not bad. That's not a bad thing. That's just being real about what we actually have going here.
it's honest.
And I mean, that's, I don't know, that's driving back to what you asked about earlier for the 25th in thoughts and plans and stuff there. Like, I just would say like that sort of place where I'm coming from is sort of what's driving me and our entire team as we reshape things for, we respect the traditions and the roots of the championship, but you sort of reshape it to be this bigger thing. But we can't just take we can't take disc golf to golf courses, period.
Yeah, and I think that's already run its course, hasn't it? I mean,
many of the disc golf venues are being obsolete, and they're becoming obsolete almost from a event standpoint, because you just can't. For public parks, I mean, how are you gonna accommodate everybody? How are you gonna protect the integrity of a ticketing program if it's not fenced in? So the answer in the short term has been, in many cases, all golf courses, but that's not like, I don't think that's going to
It's
sustain
boring.
us, because golf, yeah, disc golf on ball golf courses is pretty hit or miss, in my opinion. I mean, sometimes it's all right, but other times it's like, it's kind of boring.
Well,
Yeah.
and one of the things that they do with ball golf courses when they're designing them is they strip the land and then they put the things in that they want. And most of the time that includes not having an aerial obstacle, and aerial obstacles are perfect for our game, and there's just that, I mean, that's what you need and that's what you got to have. You don't go design a disc golf course, as as both of you know, with a chainsaw and a bulldozer. You go in there with a pole saw, and you trim limbs and you find lanes, and so that's one of the things, like going back to a couple of years ago when I brought that kid Zane Letts from my local area out to help with some course prep early, and I watched him throw, and I know I've said this before, but he threw off a 12, 2 shots down there almost to where the quarter-mile pin was. He threw one and he went back to his bag frustrated, and he threw the same shot on a rope, almost exactly within 5 feet of them. And like on my best birthday, I'm not throwing 2 shots to that spot, and I'm like, how do we design for that? You used to look for 20 acres. Now do we got to look for 40 or 50 or 100? I mean,
Right on.
it's that's a whole nother ball game. That's a whole nother level,
But
We're
but
going
you
to
know,
need a bigger boat.
Yeah, maybe 3 buses too.
but when you speak about your vision, and especially about bringing in, preserving the fundamentals of having ticket sales and having a defined off space, is Winthrop the type of space that can grow into where disc golf can grow, or to go where you want to see disc golf go, where you think disc golf can go, where it needs to partner with, say, other type of events like music festivals? Do we need to go to different venues? Like, not saying now that we're going to have to leave the championship, we have to leave Winthrop, but in your mind's eye, will a better or bigger event have to happen on a different piece of land, or can you make that magic happen at Winthrop?
We still have, I think, room to grow at Winthrop. I mean, the venue can handle a lot more people if we can just get them in there and out of there safely. The advantage that I guess we have is the Coliseum parking lot. We probably have as many paved parking spots as any other disc golf venue that I know of. And we have a football stadium a mile down the road with all of the rest of the parking that I would expect to need for at least another 5 years. It's just a matter of navigating the shuttle piece and getting that dialed in. So I think that, and I think that it's a good question from a competitor standpoint. Will it continue to provide the challenge? I'd like to think so. I mean, I don't know how much longer the course would need to be. I mean, there's still a little more room out there to stretch, but I mean, I think it's a good, long, fair challenge for both men and women. And I think it continue, if we haven't outgrown it in 25 years, it's hard to imagine that we would just in another 5 or whatever, just be like, whoa, this place is like a dink and dunk. So, I feel like we are probably good for a while longer. And certainly Winthrop is hopeful that we will stay. I know there's a lot of good conversation with the university about sort of taking over their golf course. I mean, there's back where the player hospitality area is and the spectator course is for the, outside of championship week, for the other 50 weeks a year, basically that's a 9-hole golf course that might soon be ours in terms of we take over as tenants of that land, and it's a full-time, full year disc golf destination. So we don't necessarily have to do as much. We have that much more land to work with. I think that factors in. Hard to elaborate any more than that for now. But in terms of like the spacing from a parking and from a course design standpoint, I feel like we've got room to grow.
Well, and that's a huge piece of land too. I mean, that, and I don't know, it's kind of hard to gauge that, but that comes close to doubling the land that we're using for the other course, doesn't it? I mean, at least probably 2/3 of the size of what we've already, our footprint already out there. I would
Yeah,
think.
and one thing I guess I would like to announce, because a lot of people might not have heard it yet, but I mentioned earlier that the collegiate championship was by more than 200 players bigger than any previous year, 700 competitors, and we limited it. Like, the field was capped because we just could not jam any more people into the schedule than we did, and we, in hindsight, probably shouldn't have gone quite as big as we did. But next year our goal is 1,000 competitors for the collegiate national championship, and it's moving to Rock Hill.
Nice.
So Winthrop will be sort of the home base, where we'll have a course. You will have the Winthrop Lakefront / arena course, some hybrid there. We'll have an 18-hole course on the golf course. We'll have Camp Canaan. We've got Westminster. Both of those locations are right on the Catawba River. And Westminster actually has plenty of room for a temp course. So we know we've got 5 courses solid. And to be able to do that
Wow.
in April, and really you can, I wanted to share that news, but also just to kind of give you an idea of sort of how we're springboarding kind of from one thing to the next. That's going to put a lot of things to the test. But Brian, from last year at Winthrop, I mean, we ran fiber from one of the local neighborhoods into Championship Village. We built the road, or rebuilt the road coming into the back of Winthrop's campus, into the golf course. We've been doing things to make sure that, the question earlier was, like, we've sort of been moving in that direction to continue to make that facility work, because Winthrop doesn't want us to leave, the city doesn't want us to leave, the tourism folks don't want us to leave. So they've been extremely accommodating, and so these things are kind of feeding one another as we go along.
It's so amazing the things that have happened over the last 25 years, and just like, I mean, going back to the first one, and like even the first 3 or 4, when nobody from the West Coast came for the first 2 or 3 or 4 of them, and it just took a while for, it didn't take me any time at all to jump on board, but there was a lot of people that didn't buy in right away, and it took a long time for us to get everybody on the bus. But holy cow, is it awesome that we got them all on the bus now. I mean, and just the things that we see, that I see every year. And, every time I talk to you about, okay, what are we doing next and what's coming up and how's that going to go? And man, it's, especially just in the last 18 months, pretty much, maybe today was the only time I talked to you where I didn't just get ramped up and excited. And it was like, well, we didn't really have anything new to discuss this afternoon when we were talking. And so, but they're literally probably the last, I'd say at least 7 of the last 10 conversations that you and I've had on the phone. I've got off the phone and I'm just like, I call Brandon up immediately and I'm going, dude, you aren't going to believe this, and you aren't going to believe that. Here's what's coming next, and it's awesome. I mean, it really. I'm going to say it again. Thanks so much for continuing to have me be a part of that whole thing, because it really means a lot.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's why we need to celebrate. I mean, it's 25 years, and you and I go back even farther than that. But the fact that, you've been part of every single one of these, and, it inside and out. I mean, it's why your example, or exhibit A on why it's a family reunion. I mean, we've always done this for something bigger than ourselves. And so to be able to just have a moment and sit there and watch it all go down, and just see all of the smiles and the memories that we will have created and will create in the future. I mean, we got lots of reason to celebrate. So if anybody's in doubt, if you're anywhere near Rock Hill,
start packing the car now.
Yeah.
In October. There's one other interesting thing that I guess I would say that relates absolutely to that. I mean, you know, you're seeing the prices of everything sort of soar, and you know that includes disc golf tickets, that includes your fuel, that includes your hotel rooms, that includes your meals. I mean, it's an interesting time for us all financially. And I will say that, you know, our team is committed to delivering value. And it's not just, you know, we will raise ticket prices if it makes sense to do so. And we believe it's because we're delivering greater value, but our commitment will always be to the fans and the fan experience. And we're not going to hopefully ever sacrifice the revenue, the potential revenue for putting fans in a position to have the best time possible. And so I watch that closely. I take that seriously. And I'm not throwing stones at by any stretch of the imagination at what, you know, what I'm seeing some of the ticket prices are doing. And that's been in my circle, that's been a popular conversation. But I would just want our fans to know I'm a fan. We're fans. Like, we get it. We love it. This is the game we love. This is the event that we cherish. Not ever gonna try and get as much as we can unless we know that it's because we're just delivering absolutely more, and we know that there's no other way. So I mean, I'll work personally hard to make sure that the ticket prices remain affordable and something that you can do with your family and not have to break the bank to do it. And I'll say too, like, I'm supportive of everything that's going on. Like, I mean, of where we are, like, we're all learning, we're all growing. But I just, you know, I think it's different for an event that has been doing this for 24 years. And who has a lot of fans that are coming back and they have a certain expectation. And we want to do this for another 25 years. So I think we're in a little different position from events that float around from city to city, different parts of the US and the world. So I mean, like, I think about that kind of stuff, you know, and I just want our fans, our fans have been coming for years. Like the bat that's hanging back here, my Louisville Slugger from my Louisville squad who was celebrating their 10-year anniversary as fans. Like, I got you. Like, I'm never gonna lose sight of the people that helped us get here. You know, so I don't want people to think that you're going to see some radical change from that standpoint, and we're not going to be all about throwing the best possible shindig. And, you know, I mean, whether it's players, fans, staff, whatever, when you leave, sponsors, when you leave, I want you to be like, bro, I'm never missing this. Like, I'm in. That's the most important thing to me. That's more important than the money. And there's, you know, whatever, I'll put myself out there to say that, you know, we need money to make the ship go, but we need fans to make it matter.
That's a very very good point. And you know, and that just kind of, that's one of those things that you've always told me about the whole the Quicksilver CEO, you know, planted that seed in your head years ago, and not forgetting the guys on the beach. And that's one thing that I you know, I've been watching you in action for a long time, longer than 25 years. And that's one of the reasons why I hitched my wagon to your cart, you know, because I see what you're up to, and I see where you're going, and I believe in it too.
Man,
Dude, we've hit the top of the hour. Go ahead, Paul.
no, I was just gonna say I'm moving earth and heaven to make sure that I'm part of the 25th, because I want to make sure that I come back in 25 years as well. I want to see that epic beard grow even 25 years longer.
I think I've kind of reached I've maxed out here on the length. So,
it actually looks like you backed off a little bit on the length.
It does look like you little backed off, but you
I think it's important to show respect. You know, you got to keep it in a fixed position.
There's only one ZZ Top.
So, but anyway, yeah, well, we can put a bow on it, dude. I mean, both of you guys, I mean, such a pleasure to be able to hang with you guys for an hour. It always feels like 15 minutes. I appreciate you thinking of me and having me on. I mean, you know, I'm happy to do this anytime. And dude, just stoked that we can get together and have a good time here in about 5 months. It's like right around the corner.
It is right around the corner.
honestly, I think anytime that any of us get a chance just to just be in your presence and hear the pearls of wisdom that drop from you, I mean, I'm not just fanboying here. It's honestly, this is real talk. This is the future of the sport. This is where one of the most innovative leading thinkers has taken the sport so far. So thank you for spending the time. Thank you for spending this hour with us and you know, giving a little more light and wisdom. Appreciate it.
159 days till Monday qualifying, you know, just in case you're wondering. Not that I'm
Says-
playing or anything.
Says Chad Corduroy Lefevre. He's on it.
He's totally
He's
on
our
it.
real time. He's our real time human ticker.
He's been watching, and he's been pumping the loves on the old deal. Hey, Justin Alderman tuned in. My buddy Bob Mans tuned in. Eric Marks was on here earlier, and he's a target for sure. We were trying to get him on the show.
Yeah.
Nice.
Not too distant future. So, anyways, hopefully, I'm not 100% for Harold next week, but he said he'd be on, but he hasn't confirmed next week, y'all. So I'll have an announcement here in the next day or so, probably tomorrow, about whether or not we got Harold or we'll have somebody else in his place next week. Jonathan, it's always a pleasure. Thanks a lot. I'm looking to probably come through your area in late June or early July with a nice big glass delivery. So then, you know, there'll be other stuff too, but that's kind of my target right now. Maybe a little beach time too. So
Nice.
thank you for stopping by, and we'll talk again in the not too distant future.
Over and out, brother.
All right, have a
Thanks,
good one, dude.
Jonathan.
See ya.
B, you want to hang in here and do the talk about the hockey picks for a little bit?
Yeah, no, I just want to catch my breath there. That was it's always incredible talking with Jonathan, and he's just chock full of just not only information and details, but wisdom. He was dropping some
Yeah.
serious wisdom out there. I mean, it's like it's a TED talk for disc golf, elite disc golf experience right there. So thank you, Jonathan. Can't thank you enough. He is our first so far. What's that? His third or fourth?
I think
appearance
it's
on the
his
show?
third. I think he was on early from the house and then live from USDGC, and then now here again. So he's definitely the top friend of the show.
Top friend
Not
of the
that any
show,
of the
right
rest of
there.
them aren't our top friends too, but yeah,
So yeah, go ahead.
it really, I mean, that's even when I threw in the towel and even when I turned my back almost completely on disc golf, I kept my hand in the Zebos Open, obviously, which is going on for tomorrow, excuse me, on Saturday and Sunday this week. And I told Jonathan, I literally told him this one time. I said, you know, I don't really have any more free time for people in the disc golf game except for you. You know, and it's my pleasure to go out there, and it's just like he said, it's a family reunion. It really truly is. And you know, I've watched people's like his children. Like when I started hanging out with him and started doing all this stuff. I mean, even and I guess it was in 2001 when Max was born, I guess. But so like the first 2 or 3 years that I was working with him, we weren't he didn't even have kids, you know. So I've watched Max grow up, I've watched Kellen grow up. Now Carver's, you know, second grader, if I'm not mistaken. And you know, and I've watched all these other folks. Like I just can't tell you. I mean, it really truly is like a family reunion. There's 15 or 20 people out there whose kids I've watched go from toddlers to full-grown adults with degrees, and some of them with children of their own.
And the crazy, I mean, not the crazy thing, but the thing that you had brought attention to when talking with Jonathan was, or maybe we were talking with me earlier, was showing up a week ahead of time.
Shoot,
And
I used to show up 2 weeks ahead of time,
I
stay
mean,
the week of the event, and then stay a week after.
that's one of the reasons why you've won the Golden Rake Award twice.
That had a lot to do with it.
But just that idea of having time in the day to be able to go for dinner with your friends, because when the show starts, you got no time. Like
That's
you're
what that whole week before is all about too, man. Is
Yeah.
I make sure I get my visits in with all my friends and go spend some time at their house with their kids and their wives and you know,
But
or
this
else
is
their
just it.
husbands, depending on who they are, and just it's
But this
you
is what
know,
I'm saying.
I'm not going to stop going on and on about it. So we probably ought to get on with hockey.
But that's what I'm saying is like you've been there for so long each year that you've had that experience of making connections with these people and their kids.
Dude,
Seeing
people that don't have
time.
anything to do with the championship in that town recognize me. It's like I've always lived there. I mean, I honestly, I could move into the Rock Hill, Charlotte area, just like I could move into Toronto, just like I could move into Kansas City. I could move into the Twin Cities. There's a bunch of different places I could move to, and it'd be like I'd always lived there.
Did the manager of the Chick-fil-A there on the highway, did he give you an internship possibility?
My pleasure.
All right, so let's move on to hockey. We are in the middle of, there are 3 games tonight.
Two
Two
of
in
them
the
are
East,
going
one in
on
the
right
West.
now.
So let's just first of all catch up with just the raw stats, what's happened based on what happened last night. Boston, Florida with the improbable victory, coming back to push it to 6 games. So Boston is up 3 games to 2. And in terms of the Boston Florida series, no one had Boston in 6. So all of us are out in terms of the actual numbers. We all called Boston.
Nobody's mad about that though. Not a one of us is upset
Nobody's
about
mad.
that.
No.
No, it's like wear and tear on that team is not a problem for anybody in the West
You know,
or anybody else in the East for that matter.
knock yourselves out, please.
Yeah, go to 7. I mean, Matt Kachuk predicted it. He said I don't know if you saw this video, but he said after the game, after they gave him the game puck, he said, "Guys, get used to this dressing room because we're coming back at game 7." And it's like, okay, well, we'll see. We'll see if you're really a Messier or not.
I tell you, sometimes you want to punch those Kachucks in the face, but other times, especially if they're putting a black eye on Boston, you're like, go son.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you could get away from him after punching him in the face, you're like, go ahead. But I don't think I'd do it.
Now the other Eastern improbable victory that happened the other night, the Islanders came back to tie the series, so it's 2-2. And when we look at this, no one's out of the no, actually, I'm out of the running because I called Carolina in 5, so I'm out. You called Carolina in 6, so there's still a possibility. Timmy called New Islanders in 6, and so did Jack Lowe. So those guys are both still in it as well.
Yeah, so I mean, almost they're still hanging in there, but
Well,
so if you want to keep going with the Eastern stuff,
yeah.
the Devils are up 3-0 on the Rangers with 2:33 left in the second. And you guys just went on the power play at 18:45 in the third, and you're down 2-1.
Yeah.
But you're on the power play, and you're up 3-1.
And we're up 3 games to 1, it's true, but we've been here before, and I just from
Don't put it
being
out
on
there,
the
B.
street.
Don't
No,
put
no,
it out there. Don't
just
put it
being on
out
the
there.
street. There's a nervous mood in the city of Toronto. I'm just saying.
I'm sure
Everybody's
there
strength
is. It's
We're all
not going to be like
strength
when like after that World Cup when was it when Italy won the World Cup when we were in Ottawa that time and people were just going crazy in the streets and stuff. It's
Yeah.
not. It'll be like that if you
Oh,
guys
boy.
get out of the first round.
Listen, if people are in the streets of Ottawa going crazy for a team in Toronto, yeah, then we'll know that the apocalypse is here upon us.
No. I was talking about World Cup stuff.
I'm kidding.
Soccer.
Come on.
Yeah, you come on.
Did we talk? Is that it for the East? Did we talk about that? 3-2.
Yeah.
3-1?
So Devils and Rangers are tied 2-2. Y'all are up for 3-1, and then we talked
Yeah.
about the other two in the East. So
Carolina Islanders. Sorry, Carolina's up 3 games to 2. Islanders had to win that game to keep it pushed.
to stay alive. That's right.
That's right. And where we are with that, yeah. So again, I'm the only one out on that. Now let's go to the West.
Jets will face the Golden Knights facing elimination tonight, 9 p.m.
Man.
Eastern Central.
Not
They're down.
a good look.
Knights are 3-1. I mean, I'm surprised that Winnipeg. I mean, Winnipeg did put some pressure on in the series, but it doesn't really look like it.
And we all said Winnipeg in 6 or 7. All of us.
Well, we were all rooting for Bonus. Might be his last ride.
So I think the fun times may come to an end for Winnipeg tonight. Portage and Maine may go silent tonight. Just
Well,
saying.
that's how it goes,
Now let's look at LA Edmonton.
So that last night, No, it was the night before last.
Kind of a big game.
Yeah, well, I mean, after Edmonton forces the series tied, then LA ties the series in game 4, and then Edmonton just put a foot in their ass last night, 2 nights ago, 6-3.
Now, all of you guys are out. You all called Edmonton in 4 or 5. I said Edmonton 6, so I'm still alive in that series.
Just a lot, by hanging by a thread.
I have thread.
Probably feeling pretty good about that thread, though.
I am feeling good about that thread because I did call Edmonton to go on to face Boston in the finals. Colorado, Seattle. Who would have called this?
Man, those guys, like the Kraken, figured out who they are.
Dude,
Anybody that thought the Kraken was going to be easy, even if they got past Colorado, is probably wrong.
we all called Colorado, and we all called, well, Jack and Timmy called Colorado 4. You and I said Colorado in 5. All of us are out in terms of the number of games. And if Seattle ends up winning, we all lose points on that one.
Nobody's going to care about that in the West either. Seriously, if Seattle wins, it don't matter. I mean, we split the season series with them, so and I think that's who we get next if we advance. But
Yep.
if is the key word in that sentence.
So let's just transition right to them, right to your boys. You and Timmy Gill going head to head.
Yeah, we sure are. It's and you know, I don't know. I still, like, I talked to him about that last time we talked about this. I wonder what's the value of giving up that roster spot or a couple of roster spots. Like, you know, I mean, Foligno totally gave us that game. You know, you can say what you want about it, but a knee-on-knee hit is still a knee-on-knee hit. And, you know, the players on the commentary were saying, oh, that should only be a minor. That should only be a minor. But then they went to the referee who's doing commentary and he goes, doesn't matter. None of that matters. Intent doesn't matter. It was a knee-on-knee hit and it was a 5-minute penalty and it was a game misconduct. And it's just like, okay, well, so there's two different perspectives. And, you know, I really find it funny that Dean Evison continues to talk about all these diving and during that last press conference, he was talking about all the whining. And it's like, well, it's starting with you. Like, we're not whining about anything. You guys are cheating and we're capitalizing. Let me rephrase that. The Wild cheat, the Stars capitalize. That's what's been going on in that series. You know, the Wild come out and they cheat. I mean, they have the 6th most penalized team in the league. They gave up more than 50%. They gave up a goal on over 50% of their power plays last year against St. Louis when they got kicked out. You know, I mean, this isn't a new problem. You know,
staying out of the penalty box is one of the biggest things you can do to help your cause in the playoffs. And going to the penalty box is basically a recipe for disaster. I mean,
and it's what happens
teams.
if you're going to play that thug style of game. So,
yeah, well, no, but
I don't know. Let's see. Bring it tomorrow. That's going to be fun. You know, I mean,
so just we all had the series going to at least 6 or 7. Jack and I said 6. I said Dallas in 6. Jack said Minnesota in 6. So Dallas needs to win tomorrow night for me to be right. And you and Timmy both said 7. Obviously, Timmy Homer went for Minnesota and you went for Dallas. So still lots of issues up in the air all around. We have a couple more games. This is, I think, the last of the regularly scheduled first round, if it all goes to 7, is Monday.
Yeah, it is. Sunday, like most of the games that are like tonight and tomorrow night are finishing up on Sunday, and then the Saturday games will finish on Monday.
I just hope to the good Lord above that Toronto isn't one of those teams that finds its way into playing a 7th game.
Well, let's take a look.
Oh,
you guys did not capitalize on the power play.
No, we didn't. No, it's still 2-1, and there's 15 minutes left in the third. 14.
Yeah.
Change. I don't like our chances here. I'm as soon as we're done here, I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna watch it. Yes.
You better.
Sour? Probably yes. Am I gonna spin?
No.
Yes. Will I need Tums? Absolutely.
Oh man.
All right. Well, that's the first round hockey roundup for now. We are gonna have our second round official hockey picks. Maybe Monday or Tuesday. TBD.
Depending on what goes on in the next few days. If there's games on Monday, then I guess we're not going to have a choice but to do it on Tuesday.
Yeah. But we'll
And
definitely
and
try
if
to get.
honestly, if that happens, and I think if it goes right, then maybe they won't start the round till Wednesday. And if that's the case, we'll try to have Harold on Tuesday, as long as that works out for him. But we're gonna try to move it around. Well, you know, if the Stars advance, then I'm gonna be a little bit more sticky in the schedule next week. If they don't, then I don't care. We can have it any night.
At least for Stars home games. And then
Yeah, and that's really the only concern for me is that because I'm going. It's I mean, I'm
Imagine
going and I'll stay for the whole thing, just like my friends from Minneapolis are going, I hope you stayed. And I'm like, what, wait, what, you leave? You leave so you can sit in traffic early? No, that's not how I roll.
well,
You
it's
never leave a hockey game, especially not a playoff hockey game.
no. I mean, a regular season, I guess I can understand that, but come on, you pay that money and time to get to a playoff game? Come
I don't
on.
leave concerts either.
No, I'm definitely Frank Costanza when it comes to that. I'm looking for the fast traffic routes out. For
Man, we had
concert.
a whole bunch of people show up late. Let's see, George Smith checked in. Dave Clapp checked in. Ron Perkins checked in. Terry Roddy, Jeff Johnson,
Hey,
Keith
Roddy.
Mason. Yeah, Roddy, I don't know what he's up to. But yeah, so we had quite a few. We had a good variety of people coming and going.
Nice.
And you know, we're just getting this thing up rolling. So
Bumping along. Well, we had a really great guest tonight. Really thank Jonathan again for taking the time and energy to talk to us. Some good stories there, and hopefully we can have Harold on next week. In which case, if that's the deal, and we will have Harold on. If not next week, we will have him on, and that's just going to be incredibly informative. I mean, especially with Innova's 40th, he can talk to us about Ground Floor Zero when this all happened, the beveled edge revolution, and he's a two-time PDJ world champion.
yes, he is that. And on top of it, just one of the most patient people I've ever had have the privilege of working with. And you know, I mean, even like going back to playing, I ended up playing with him and Selinsky on a couple different rounds. At
Wow.
one time, I played with him and Selinsky, and it was just the three of us at in Minneapolis at Pro Worlds.
Wow.
And I mean, like, just think about that. But I've played with him another time at Worlds, and I played with Selinsky another time at Worlds. I don't think the two were together, but yeah, you know, it was just getting those opportunities with those guys, you know, and just like, well, Tim's setting up a shot at one point. Harold said to me, he goes, notice how you still can't see the pin. And right here where we're standing, you really can't see the tee pad either. And I was just like, and that's all he said. And so, you know, I just thought about it, you know, and you think, and it's just one of those things, you know, like that's one of the best ways to learn is you follow a master around and try to sweep up the crumbs, you know.
Yeah.
A
Or
little bit of
maybe
information, a little bit of knowledge, and
you
so
shot
that's another. I mean, seriously, that again, going back to what I was saying earlier about Jonathan. I mean, same thing for Harold. You know, I mean, like I'd have never known either one of those guys like I do if it hadn't been for that event. You know, and you know, it's one of those things where I feel confident that at any time I could call them up and go, hey, I need help, and they'd both do what they needed to come to my aid. You know, I mean, and I do the same thing for them. You know, I mean, well, okay, here's a perfect example. So I was on the Fling show last night, and Chris does a really cool thing with his script where he goes and he starts digging into your profile and he pulls these photos and he starts asking you questions. Well, Chris pulled one up and it was all of us. It was Jonathan and Phil Arthur, myself, and Brian Schweberger and Ashley, and Brandon was there. So was golly, I'm gonna draw a blank on it now. Levon Wolf. There was a few other people like that, but he goes, what's going on in this picture? And it was when we were spreading Craig's ashes on hole 17 at USDGC, you know, and it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, well, he asked me a question and I started getting emotional about it because, you know, I mean, dude, that's one of the guys that I learned from, you know,
Yeah.
one of the people, one of the people that he was a living legend as well. You know, I mean, he grew up in La Mirada. He grew up in La Mirada, California. He played there, and those guys would come out with the early Innova discs, and those kids like Sam Ferens and Craig Laveland, Scott Stokely, and Steve Valencia, and Mike Williams, and all those guys. They were the test pilots. You know, they were the ones that could really throw and rip compared to the older guys. And you know, it's just one of those things. It was a big privilege for me. Like Brandon and I went all the way up to the Black Hills and dumped his ashes in a lot of places up there in and around Sturgis and Mount Rushmore and the Crazy Horse Memorial and all of that. But then we took some back to Winthrop and dumped them. You know, we dumped some at Veterans on top of the hill out there. And, you know, it's just one of those things. It was a real privilege to know those people, and, you know, to have been involved, you know, just pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyways,
I'm blessed to have met him and so many others along the way, for sure. And hopefully, you know, hopefully all of us take a second to just reflect on what this game has given us and the relationships that we've been able to grow and develop, because that's stronger than anything else. That's stronger than applause. It's stronger than praise. It's stronger than records. That's the thing that we're all gonna. That's the golden glow when you remember something.
It's the couch surfing brotherhood and sisterhood.
Couch surf, yes. How many couches
I'm like
have we-
1150 rated at couch surfing, man.
Well, all right, buddy. I'm gonna go catch the last 10 minutes of this shenanigans we call the hockey game, and
It might be 30. You never know.
you never know. Oh,
Get a
boy.
free 20.
Oh, I'm nervous already. Still clenching. But we're gonna do it again. And in the meantime, peace out, everyone out there. Thanks for following along. Thanks for checking in and watching and catching up with us. And we hope to catch you with Harold Ball next week. If it's not gonna be Harold, it's gonna be somebody. That's for sure,
All right,
right?
then. All right, B. Thanks a lot. Good job on the script, and we'll talk again real soon.
All right, I'm like this. Come on.
Yeah, you come on.
All right.
Yeah.